Welcome to Immigration Insider with your host, attorney John Nicelli. This podcast is an educational forum on how to deal with complex aspects of immigration and pitfalls to avoid. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, johnnicelli.com. Now here's the host of Immigration Insider, attorney John Nicelli.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Nicelli. I'm an immigration attorney in New York City for the last 43 years. And today I wanted to basically calm some people down because there's a lot of bad and information going around. And as a result, people are very, very scared. So I'm sure many people have heard of these recent ICE raids throughout the United States, which is one of the Trump administration promises that he would like to deport as many people as possible. Initially, it started they were going to deport criminals. Now it's turned out that deporting almost anybody they can find, it appears. And different things are happening in different states. And it's a little bit insane what's going on because American citizens are now afraid to travel outside the country, sometimes even leave their houses. And it's really, really unfortunate. So I wanted to clarify some of the things that are going on. So basically, if you're unlawfully in the United States, you don't really have a fear or have to have a fear of walking in the street because immigration agents are not allowed to pick you out in the street and question you by the color of your hair or the color of your skin or just the way you look or the way you dress or anything like that. They have absolutely no basis whatsoever to pick up anyone that's in the street unless they have a warrant for their arrest. So what's going on right now is that you hear a lot about people that are being deported. And the people that are being deported are people that may have gone to court and had a voluntary departure order. And they went to court and the judge said you have to leave by a certain amount of time. And years ago, it was 6 months. Now it's 90 days. And if you don't leave within the specific period of time, so that order becomes an order of deportation. So if it's an order of removal or an order of deportation under the old law, then what happens is that now if ICE finds you, they have a right to arrest you, detain you, and remove you from the United States. Another reason why ICE is picking up many people, because there are many people who have what you call in absentia orders of removal. So and that often begins at the border. People come in at the border. They may not speak the language, even though they're supposed to have an interpreter present or either on the phone. But many times the Border Patrol does not contact an interpreter. So if you speak, Arabic, for example, or you can speak, Portuguese or some other language, and they don't have an interpreter, they'll try to speak to you in Spanish or in English. And if there's an interpreter available, they're supposed to get him, but often they don't. So what happens, they tell people here, they just point here, sign, then you're going to go home. People only want to hear they're going to be released. All right. So don't worry, you're going to go out. You're going to go wherever you're going. So people sign, not realizing that those signatures are actually documents that they're being served with, notifying them that they're going to have a court appearance in the future. So thousands of people a year are getting deported in absentia from the border states such as Texas and Arizona and California. Because they come in, they don't really know what they're signing, and as a result, they are released because there's no room in the detention centers, so they release them into, to do whatever they want. So, and then people go throughout the country. But what happens years later or even months later, that people don't know they were actually deported. Why? Because they never went to court. Some that do know that they should have gone to court also don't go to court, which is another problem. So if you're aware of a court hearing and you don't show up and now you get an absentia order, it's almost impossible to reopen that case if you're aware of it and chose not to go. So sometimes the ones that didn't know, if you can prove they didn't know, or had absolutely no knowledge of a court appearance and they didn't show, well, those people will be deported. And then once this order is issued, ICE enforcement people will then look for that person wherever they may be located in the United States. And they find people through many, many different means, whether it's, especially with social media, they find through cell phones, now through tax returns. There's many, the deeds to homes. There's many ways to find people. And with the modern internet, it's very difficult to basically hide anywhere. So if you have a phone that's in your name, or you file a tax return, or maybe you appeared in court and never went the second time, they could find you. They check your old addresses, acquaintances. There's many ways. And another reason why people are getting deported is because they actually attended a court hearing and the judge either gave them voluntary departure to leave or issued an order of removal. So sometimes what happens, they issue an order of removal and the lawyers will tell the people, well, we'll just appeal. So they appeal. So now an appeal will take a year or two, for example. And then after the appeal is done, the Board of Immigration Appeals decides that, well, sorry, we're not going to grant this case. We're not going to reverse the judge's decision. So you have to leave the country. So many times people are aware that the Board of Immigration Appeals denied their case, and they're aware the judge denied their case. So even though they're aware of it, and they know they now have a final order of removal, they decide to just stay. And the reason why they stay are many, because they're working, they may have families here, they have good jobs, maybe they bought a house, they own a business. There's many reasons why people stay. But that doesn't make it right, because you are in violation of a judge's order. So if you are in violation of a judge's order, immigration does have the right to pick you up, and they will pick you up if they have the opportunity. So those are the three basic reasons why you hear about so many people being arrested, because immigration is able to access your records, and they access the records, they eventually find you, and then they just enforce the order that already exists against you. And unfortunately, some people that were arrested at the border who are unaware that they have been deported, unfortunately get an unpleasant surprise when ICE shows up and says, well, we have an order of deportation here, we have a warrant for your arrest, so now you're coming with us. One of the very common reasons that people get picked up is because they have criminal records. So if you have a criminal record, depending on how serious it is, that's a number one target for ICE agents. They especially are really against people who have committed crimes, heinous crimes. For example, sexual offenses against children, rape, anything involving drugs, almost any kind of drugs. So if you've sold drugs and been arrested, and say you went to prison, but somehow you got through the system because you may have told the prison people that you were an American citizen, no one basically checked, and then as a result, ICE never really got you before you were released. But they should have gotten you. And if they realize that they didn't get you and you're out in the street, their top priority are any types of criminals who are in the system or may have gotten through the system and are no longer in any prison or anywhere in any facility. So they will look for you wherever they can find you, and they will use all their means to arrest you. And often ICE works with other law enforcement agencies. So if there's another law enforcement agency looking for you, they will work together to apprehend you, whether that be the FBI, the DEA, ATF. They're also after many people who may support terrorism or are terrorists, organized crime, gang members, things like that. Those are their top priorities to arrest people. But unfortunately, they're arresting not only those type of people, they're arresting all kinds of people, and many innocent people, unfortunately, that are in a tough situation because they were deported for some reason. Another reason that they pick up a lot of people is something that's called expedited removal. Expedited removal was put on the books a few years ago, and not a few years ago, I'm sorry. That was put on the books in the 1990s. And when that was put on the books, It basically said that if immigration finds you within 100 miles of the border, and they can arrest you, deport you, and ship you out. You have no right to have a hearing with a judge or anything. So that law was changed not too long ago, and they extended it to 2 years being in the United States, and you don't have to be at the border either, or near a border. So now, if immigration finds you and you've been in the United States for less than 2 years, and they realize you're unlawfully here, they can arrest you, they can detain you, and they will deport you based on an expedited removal order. Now, what they've been doing lately, which is really very frightening and really, I believe it's on the edge of unlawfulness, is that they have people that many of people came during the Biden administration and applied for asylum. Now, whether they have a good claim for asylum or bad claim for asylum, one of the problems has been that the court, there's been so many people that the courts have been tied up, and there's thousands upon thousands of cases in the asylum offices and the courts right now. So it takes years to get a hearing, and many times it takes 2 or 3 years to have a hearing on your claim to asylum. So whether you have a good claim or you have a bad claim, you still are entitled to have a hearing regarding your claim. So in order to remove people from the United States as soon as possible, what the prosecutors have now been doing, who are part of ICE also, that's the ICE litigation section, as opposed to the ICE law enforcement section where they make apprehensions. So what they do, they have an area of ICE which is strictly involved in finding people and removing them. So it's removal operations. And they will work together with the litigation section of ICE, which are the people that go to court and represent the government before the judge. So now the latest is when a person who's been here less than 2 years has a hearing with an immigration judge, ICE, the legal division, the prosecutor will say, Judge, I'm sorry, we're no longer interested in prosecuting this case, so we want to terminate proceedings. So the judge says, well, why do you want to terminate proceedings? The person has a right to have a hearing before me. And they say, well, Judge, we're not interested in that right now, so we want you to terminate proceedings. So some judges will not terminate, and some judges will, but the majority of them will because they want to clear up their calendars, and they may have reviewed the file and seen that there's not really much of a claim that could be proved. So they'll say, well, you know what? There's really not much I can do, and I'm not going to tie up my calendar for another year or two, or even another day or two, because I don't want to do a claim that may or may not be granted. So what happens basically is they terminate proceedings, and then once they leave the courtroom, the ICE officials are there to pick them up. They arrest the people, detain them, and then they ship them out based on an order of expedited removal. And they have every right under the sun to do that, and they've been doing it quite effectively here in New York and throughout the United States. So a lot of people now are realizing that if they go to court, they may be arrested. So what's happening now is they're just not showing up for court. So now not going to court puts you on the hit list for them to go look for you. But that's also difficult because it's difficult to find people because they may move out of state. They may change their name. They may change everything about them. They'll get rid of their cell phone, and no one really knows where they are. So just go into the limelight, and it's very difficult for ICE to find those people. But they will have an order of removal because ICE will issue an order of what's called order of expedited removal, and basically they're in trouble. Once they get you, that's it. So another thing I wanted to tell you is that many times ICE will go from house to house. All right. So when they go from house to house, what happens is those are people that usually have a warrant for their arrest, and they have an order of deportation. If ICE just comes to your house, knocks on your door, you don't have to answer the door unless they have a warrant. And many times people are fearful of opening the door because, hey, I got nothing to do with ICE. but yet maybe somebody that lives in that household has an order of removal, and they're after that person. So that's very, very, very fearful because people are very, very, very scared when that happens. Another thing I wanted to tell you is that people, I'm sure you've heard a lot about people being stopped at the airport. So when to be stopped at the airport, there's many reasons for that to happen as well. So they're stopping permanent residents of the United States, and those are with green cards. And many of those people have been stopped, not because they really are criminals, but because they've been out of the country too long or they've been out of the country too often. So if you're a resident of the United States, your intent has to be to live in the United States if you're a green card holder. So if you live outside the United States most of the time, ICE would have the right to actually take your green card away from you when you arrive, saying you abandoned your residence because you've been out too long, and therefore, they'll stop you at the airport and they'll put you back on the next plane out. So that's happening very often. Maybe when you got your residence, you were fine, but then from the time you received your residence, you got arrested. Maybe you have some crime that you committed. Well, if they find you committed some crime, and depending on the seriousness of that crime, they can also deny you entry, or more than likely, what they'll do is they'll have you appear before an immigration judge. And then at that time, you have to determine what it is you're going to file for and what you may be eligible for, again, depending on what the crime is. There have been other cases where people are residents of the United States, and they've been actually approved by mistake, okay, which happens. Immigration does make mistakes. So you get a green card, and it's by mistake, but you're as happy as can be because now you have a green card. The problem is that there's a lot of scams going on. So one of the major scams was what's called you would get your residence by an extraordinary ability petition. So extraordinary ability petition means that you have these outstanding qualifications, you have all kinds of degrees, maybe you wrote books, you have international notoriety for what you've done. So immigration will give you their green card based on all your qualifications for what you're doing. The problem is that there has been lawyers that have been arrested for providing fake documents to people who and then presented the documents to immigration. I mean, I've had cases where the person never attended college and they have a master's degree or a doctorate degree and wrote books on something. So when they arrest the lawyers, then they investigate every case that lawyer did, and if even a non-lawyer. And then once you arrive at the airport, you're on the list. They will question you, they will stop you, and they will take your green card away if the rules apply to you. Another thing that they do is people that have these VOW petitions. A VOW is Violence Against Women's Act. That was a law passed some years ago, and a lot of people applied for it. And the reason for it was to give residence to people who've been abused by their spouse, American spouses or children or parents. So what's happened is that, of course, again, there were people that want to abuse the system. So the latest scam, where there was recently a lawyer arrested here in New York, him and his whole crew, people would go to them desperate to get their residence. So they say, well, do you have American children? Yes. All right, so then what we're going to do then, they'll say, for you to qualify under this Violence Against Women's Act, we'll say that your children abused you. Say, but my children never abused me. No, you don't worry. He says, we'll send you to a psychologist. You say to the psychologist, you can't take it anymore because your children were abusing you. They were, robbing things in your house. And they make up all kinds of story of how these parents were abused. And then as a result, what happens, they present the psychological reports to immigration. Or sometimes maybe they had the child arrested, but they know the child can't be deported. So they'll arrest them on a domestic violence issue. Like they'll say my son or my daughter slapped me or punched me or something, and the police came. And then they'll dismiss the charges, or they'll give them a minor misdemeanor. So that they know they're not going to leave, but the parent will benefit. So then the parent benefits, and then when they arrest a lawyer, people travel at the airport and they arrive. They say, oh, wow, look at this. A VOW case from this lawyer, it's probably fake. and then they start questioning the people. And often people get so scared, they just break down at the airport, and then they revoke their green cards. So that's another reason why people are getting stopped at the airport. If you've done nothing, you're a permanent resident of the United States, you're an American citizen, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't travel. Don't be fearful of going out of your house, and just don't be fearful of ICE if you haven't done anything wrong. Now, one of the things, the latest little trick that they're up to is they're calling for people to self-deport. So what this is the Department of Homeland Security has this new app called a C as in cat, B as in boy, P as in Peter app, CBP Home app. So you can go on your cell phone, and on your cell phone you say, I want to register for this app to leave the country. So you have to fill out this short application, and they'll ask you questions. Are you ready to leave? And you'll put yes. And then you put your name, your middle name, your last name, your date of birth, your country of citizenship, and your email address. Then they'll ask you for your phone number. They'll ask you, is it an international phone number? And they'll ask you to take a photo of yourself. So then you submit. Once you submit all that, then supposedly ICE is going to reach out to you to make your final arrangements for you to leave the country. So I believe that they will actually put you on a flight, and then they will give you a $1,000 if you depart. And that $1,000 will be paid once you leave, and they can verify that you've left the United States. I don't know of anyone that's gotten the $1,000 yet. I know very few people that have actually left, but this is another means of people to leave the United States. So basically, that's it for today. I just wanted to calm people down and stop being apprehensive about leaving your home or going out or having your children go to school. Because if you haven't done anything, you have nothing to worry about. If you're unlawfully here, they cannot stop you in the street. They cannot come up to you and ask you anything. It's the ones that are being stopped in the street are people that have records with immigration, and they know that they have a right to arrest them or may have a warrant for their arrest. All right? So I wish everyone good luck, and hang in there, and hopefully things will work out. Thank you.
You've been tuning into Immigration Insider with your host, attorney John Nicelli. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, johnnicelli.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.